Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our 50th session on Bhagavad Gita Overview Seminar for Bhakti Shastri. Thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. We appreciate it so much. And tonight we should complete the 12th chapter and complete the second section of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Tonight we're reading from verse 13 to verse 20, which is the end of the 12th chapter. And concluding the discussion for the time being of pure devotional service, when we go on after 10 days or so into the third section, where we'll be discussing gyan, like secondary knowledge. A certain amount of it, well, it's secondary knowledge. So a certain amount of it is not dealing directly with pure devotional service, but just things like the nature of the body, the nature of the mind, the modes of material nature. Even chapter 16 is about the nature of demons, people who are opposed to Krishna consciousness. And then finally at the end, in chapter 18, there's a summary, and again we come back to pure devotional service towards the end, really, of the 18th chapter, the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita. However, for the time being, let us offer our prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadesh Tarne Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasani Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Right, so we start with verse 13, actually verses 13 and 14 there combined together. But first of all, let me just note a few points here. So we said this is chapter 13 verse 13 to verse 20. And what we call this section is qualities which endear one to Krishna. Qualities which, if you develop them in yourself, Krishna will become attracted to you because he appreciates those qualities. So if you have them, he'll appreciate you. That's the basic idea. So it's a very nice list of good qualities which endear the devotee to the Lord. The main quality is found in the last verse 20, that, let me just read it. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. That's pure Krishna consciousness, isn't it? That's pure devotional service. At the end of the other verses, you'll see Krishna says, such a person who has whatever qualities were mentioned in that particular verse, such a person, such a devotee is very dear to me. In verse 20, the last verse, he describes the quality of being absorbed in pure devotional service. And he says, anyone who's like that, any devotee who's like that, is very, very dear to me. So you get the idea. And that's the most important quality, to be fully engaged in devotional service. It's obviously directly devotional. Many of the other qualities, which we'll read through, you'll see, many of them are kind of, they're devotional. They could be mode of goodness also, just some pious person who's not necessarily a devotee. Although when we look at the purports, we'll see how the qualities, even if they are qualities that people in the mode of goodness may well have, but being a devotee makes it much easier to develop the qualities. And one can develop them much more than the person who's simply in the mode of goodness. So in a sense, you can say Krishna's directly or indirectly, well, directly and indirectly, summarizing the process of Krishna consciousness and how it works and what the results are, like that. So Krishna, throughout this whole section, from the beginning of verse 7 right till here, the end of verse 12, Krishna has made it very clear repeatedly that pure devotional service is the highest standard of life, and it should be aspired for by everyone. Everyone should try to develop pure devotional service. Everyone should try to become a pure devotee. And in this way, the second half, or not half, but section of Bhagavad Gita is concluded. And as we did mention right in the very beginning, in the first day, or maybe second day, I think first day, that of the three sections from chapter 1 to chapter 6, from chapter 7 to chapter 12, chapter 13 to chapter 18, actually this section from 7 to 12 is the most important. It really is the most important. And like in the third section we're going to come into in 10 days or so, it's mainly the last chapter itself which is again very important. Of course, it's all important. It's Bhagavad Gita, it's all important. But where pure devotional service is very clearly described, those parts are the most important. So chapter 18, particularly the end, the sort of last quarter of the last chapter, is also very, very important. All right, so what we'll do, we've got these 8 verses from 13 to 20, and it's all one section. There's no subsection, no division there. So we'll just go verse by verse. The theme is the same in every verse. The theme is the same in principle. Qualities which endear you to Krishna. So let's just do that. We'll start with verses 13 and 14 and then just go one by one through. All right, verses 13 and 14. One who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. Yes, well, there you go. There you go. That's what the chapter's like, basically. That's what the chapter's like. And we can see all of these qualities lend themselves to Krishna consciousness. But in the case of a number of them, then people who are in the mode of goodness could develop them. Not all, but some. Yeah. So there is a lecture of Srila Prabhupada's, one lecture on these two verses together. And it's just very interesting indeed. Srila Prabhupada, if you look it up, you'll find it. It's easy to find. If you've got Prabhupada's books on computer and lectures and everything. But it's very interesting. Srila Prabhupada begins the class. The actual first words he says are, listen to this. So, this Krishna consciousness movement means how to become dear to Krishna. How Krishna will love me. Krishna loves. This is how Prabhupada begins the class. It's really very beautiful. How Krishna will love me. How can I become dear to Krishna? You know, oftentimes devotees think, how will I love Krishna? How will I develop love for Krishna? Krishna prema, how will I get Krishna prema? Something like that, which is nice. It's fine. But if you really think about it, the way Prabhupada expresses himself here, actually it's more appropriate. How can I become dear to Krishna? How can it be that Krishna will notice me amongst the many people, even amongst many devotees, that Krishna will notice, oh look, there's my devotee. There's the devotee who's particularly dear to me. Yeah, so this is something special. How Krishna will love me. How can I become a lovable person? Someone who Krishna will feel attracted to. That what a nice devotee. What a nice mood. Always endeavoring in so many ways to please me, Krishna may think. Yeah. Because for us to love Krishna, you know, in a certain sense, that should not really be a problem, because Krishna is very lovable. He's so kind. He helps in so many ways. It's amazing. Even people who hate him, he helps in so many ways. It's wonderful. It's amazing. But us, generally we're thinking, how will I benefit? What is in it for me? We're thinking from our point of view. Yeah. Krishna's not thinking like that. So to love Krishna, it should not be difficult, because he's so nice, so kind, so merciful. But for us to be lovable, that may be another thing, because we are prone to be selfish, lusty, greedy, angry, envious, proud, all these types of things. We have those tendencies, and someone who's like that is not so lovable. So this is the point here, how to become such a person that Krishna will become attracted to us. He will want our association. And finally, ultimately, Krishna will think, I cannot live without this devotee. And then he'll just take us back to Godhead. Not that we will take ourselves back to Godhead, but Krishna will take us. This is how it works. We actually just read that a couple of days ago. Was it in this chapter? It was. It was in the first section. How Krishna takes the devotee. Krishna comes on Garuda and picks the devotee up out of the ocean of material existence. Not that we have to sort of climb up by our own strength somehow or other and somehow get ourselves there. It doesn't really work like that. All right, so, yes, and as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, don't try to see Krishna, but rather act in such ways that Krishna will see you. Krishna will want to see you. Yeah. Krishna will want to have your association. So let's just have a look at some of these qualities. The devotee is not envious. People become envious when another person has something that they don't have, but they want. Yeah. Then they think, oh, why does that person have that? But the devotees are not envious. The devotees are not envious at all. Rather, if they see another person becoming more advanced in Krishna consciousness, getting more mercy from Krishna, then the devotees think that is wonderful. Let me serve that devotee. Let me learn from that devotee how to please Krishna. Not why is he getting more mercy? Why is he distributing more books than me? Why is he glorified more than me? This is envy. But devotees, as devotees progress, these types of mentalities just go. And rather the devotees celebrate the good fortune of the other devotees. And even if someone is envious of him, of you, like if someone comes and insults you, maybe they say something bad about you, or maybe they steal something, or possibly even they hit you or something like that, then the devotee doesn't think, oh, I'm going to get back at that person. Rather, the devotee thinks that I was treated badly in this way, because in the past I treated someone badly. So I'm just getting my karma, I'm just getting what I deserve, and there's no one to blame except me. If I had not treated that person badly in the past, if I had treated that person nicely, then I would have been treated nicely here, under these circumstances. Yes, so like this. Well, Prabhupada mentions, let's see, Prabhupada refers, let's just have a look here. Yeah, Prabhupada refers to, in the purport, to Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-8. Whenever a devotee is in distress or has fallen into difficulty, he thinks that it's the Lord's mercy upon him. He thinks, thanks to my past misdeeds, I should suffer far, far greater than I'm suffering now. So it is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord that I'm not getting all the punishment I am due. I'm just getting a little by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore the devotee is always calm. Prabhupada mentions here. The devotee is always calm, quiet, patient. And the devotee is kind to everyone, including his enemies. Including his enemies. Actually, a devotee doesn't feel that he has any enemies. An advanced devotee. You know, Maharaj Yudhisthira, he had one name, Ajata Shatru. Shatru means enemy, and Ajata means unborn. His enemy was never born. He had many people who considered him their enemy, and therefore the battle of Kurukshetra happened. But he never thought they were his enemy. He never thought that. Rather, he was always kindly disposed, even to people who hated him, to the point of wanting to kill him, like this. So, you know, of course, each one of these verses, we can have a whole class on each one, no problem at all. But these are some of those qualities, a few we've just mentioned here. Let's go on to 15. He by whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, whose equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety is very dear to me. Okay, let's have a look here. Let's have a look. Well, let me just note another point from the previous purport. I'm sorry. Yeah, I should do that. Prabhupada concludes the purport of verses 13 and 14 as follows. Such a standard of devotional service is undoubtedly very rare, but a devotee becomes situated in that stage by following the regulative principles of devotional service. Furthermore, the Lord says that such a devotee is very dear to him, for the Lord is always pleased with all his activities in full Krishna consciousness. And actually, devotees, we have one of our special questions here for those of you who are doing Bhakti Shastra, based on verses 13 and 14. So, although Another verse is mentioned here, is noted. You can note down Caitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 10, verse 102. Swarup Damodar also arrived the next day. He was a very intimate friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, and he was an ocean of transcendental mellows. So, yeah, well, the verse, verses 13 and 14 from this chapter, Bhagavad Gita, they talk about being a friend, how Maharaj Yudhisthira, he always was kindly disposed even towards Duryodhana, who hated him. So we mentioned a little bit about friends. So according to this verse we just referred to right now from Caitanya Charitamrita, who was Lord Chaitanya's intimate friend? Well, it was Swarup Damodar Goswami. All right, so back on now to verse 15, excuse me. He by whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. Yes. Well, a devotee for whom no one is put into difficulty and who's not disturbed by anyone. What sort of example can we think of in that regard? How about Haridas Thakur? Haridas Thakur, he was beaten savagely. It's just completely horrific. In how many marketplaces? 22, I think, marketplaces. And at the end, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, not only did he survive, which was extremely unusual. Normally people would just die after being beaten in just, not even half the marketplaces. But he survived. But not only did he survive, but he felt fine. He was just, ready for a big kirtan. But the soldiers who'd been beating him, they were exhausted. They were finished. And they told him, listen, because we have been unable to kill you, we will be killed. And Haridas Thakur said, oh no, we can't have that. And he voluntarily died just there on the spot. He just dropped dead on the spot by his own potency, because he didn't want those people, even though they're demons, basically, he didn't want them put into difficulty. Yeah. And he was not disturbed by them. These are classic qualities of a devotee who's equipoised in happiness and distress. Let me just mention a sort of slightly famous little story which appeared in Back to Godhead several years ago. Well, in this story, there was a wise man, and there was his son, and there were two friends, foolish friends of the wise man. They were his friends, but they were not wise. They were foolish friends. So, one day, the the wise man a wild horse. Well, no, sorry. One day, the wise man's horse, not a wild horse, tame horse, the wise man's horse escaped and ran away. And his foolish friends came and said, "Oh, that's very bad." And the wise man said, "It may be bad, it may be good." Next day, the horse came back, and it brought another horse, which was a wild horse. So now the wise man has two horses. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. So now the wise man has two horses, and the foolish friends come, and what do they say? "Oh, that's very good." Previously it was bad, the horse ran away. Now it's very good. Two horses. But the wise man said, it may be good, it may be bad. The next day, the wise man's son tried to tame the wild horse, the new horse, by just jumping on the back of the horse and just trying to ride the horse until the horse accepted having him sitting on his back. So he jumped on the back of the horse jumped around, and the horse threw the son off, and he crashed on the ground and broke his leg. And the foolish friends came and said, "Oh, that's very bad." And the wise man said, "It may be bad, it may be good." The next day, the king declared war on some neighboring country and sent his soldiers around to find all the young men, to grab them, drag them into the army to fight, and, quite possibly, quite easily die. So the soldiers came into the wise man's place, and there was the son lying down because he broke his leg. And the soldiers thought, good, we'll just take this young fellow, he looks lazy. But then they saw, he's got a broken leg, he can't even stand up, he can't move. So they left him, and they went and took some other young men. And the foolish friends came and said, "Oh, that's very good." And the wise man said, "It may be good, it may be bad." So like this, a devotee, anyway, that was from Back to Godhead, it really was. But a devotee is not moved by material happiness or materially beneficial circumstances and materially detrimental circumstances. Whatever. If things go well, he takes it as Krishna's mercy. If difficulties come, he takes it as Krishna's mercy. Krishna's teaching him, don't be attached to this world. Like this. And Srila Baladev Vijayabhushan makes a comment. Joy, jealousy, fear and anxiety, causes of disturbance, give him up. He does not have to do anything himself to avoid them, because he's deeply absorbed in relishing Krishna consciousness. He is not touched by these emotions at all. Just as one devotee once said, when he was asked by someone who knew him before he became a devotee. So the devotee previously had been very attached to eating meat. And the friend who hadn't seen him since he became a devotee, the friend came and said, "Wow, how did you give up eating meat? how did you give up meat? And the devotee said, I did not give up meat. Meat gave up me. Interesting. What does that mean? Means not that he had to fight with the desire to eat meat and somehow stop himself and force himself. But just as he was practicing Krishna consciousness, he found that the interest just went. And then there's just no interest, couldn't care less. So therefore he said, meat gave up me. And this is what happens. So Prabhupada concludes the purport. A devotee who's always transcendental to all these disturbances is very dear to Krishna. 16. My devotee, who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. So, Srila Prabhupada in the purport talks about money. Money may be offered to a devotee, but he should not struggle to acquire it. If automatically, by the grace of the Supreme, money comes to him, he is not agitated. Yeah, and then Krishna says, the devotee is pure. Prabhupada says, naturally a devotee takes a bath at least twice in a day and rises early in the morning for devotional service. Thus he's naturally clean both inwardly and outwardly. Outwardly from taking a bath, and inwardly through being fully engaged in devotional activities from early in the morning. And a devotee is always expert because he fully knows the essence of all activities of life. Yeah. And like this, these different points are made, that the devotee, Prabhupada says that the devotee is, Krishna says the devotee is without cares, free from all pains, not striving for a result. Prabhupada says, devotee never takes the part of a particular party, therefore he's carefree. Like in America right now, you know, in all the nearly 70 years I've been alive, I've never seen such a feverish mood around an election. It's just, people hate each other. People just hate each other. It's so extreme. And so much criticism and just nastiness. And therefore many people are in anxiety. Who's going to win? Oh, is my side going to win or not? Oh, and if my side loses, oh my gosh, what will we do? But the devotee never takes the part of a particular materialistic party. And therefore the devotee doesn't care. If it's a communist government, a strong capitalist government, socialist, whatever, we will carry on with our Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada, and then not striving for some result. Prabhupada makes the point that the pure devotee does not endeavor for anything which is against the principles of devotional service. For example, constructing a big building requires great energy, and a devotee does not take to such business if it does not benefit him by advancing his Krishna consciousness. He may construct a temple for the Lord and for that he may take all kinds of anxiety. But he doesn't construct a big house for his personal relations. And actually we have another, would you believe, special question. And it refers to Caitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 18:8. Madhya Lila 18:8. Just as Srimati Radharani is most dear to Lord Krishna, so her lake, known as Radha Kund, is also very dear to him. Of all the gopis, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most beloved. So the question is, please refer to a verse presented in the class which was about being dear to the Lord. What verse was it? Well, it was Madhya Lila 18:8. In verse 17, one who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. You know, it's in certain respects fairly similar to verse 15, which we read a few minutes ago. Not attached to happiness or distress. So here, neither rejoices nor grieves, neither laments nor desires, no fear, no anxiety, from verse 15. Anyway, that's interesting. Elsewhere, Prabhupada makes the point, where is it? Anyway, we'll see that the point is made that there is some repetition here. And previously also, I forget exactly where it was, the point, there was some things that were repeated over a few verses. And the point was made that this was done for emphasis, because they're very important things. So therefore it's not a mistake that something is said twice, but it's just to make it more clear to us. Let's have a look at the purport here, verse 17. A pure devotee is neither happy nor distressed over material gain and loss, nor is he very much anxious to get a son or disciple, nor is he distressed by not getting them. If he loses anything which is very dear to him, he does not lament. Similarly, if he does not get what he desires, he is not distressed. He is transcendental in the face of all kinds of auspicious, inauspicious, and sinful activities. He is prepared to accept all kinds of risks for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Nothing is an impediment in the discharge of his devotional service. Such a devotee is very dear to Krishna. And verses 18 and 19. One who is equal to friends and enemies. Well, again, there's some repetition, it seems. Who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress. We specifically read about them in 15. Fame and infamy. Who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who's fixed in knowledge, and who's engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. Yeah, okay. So, Prabhupada begins the purport by talking about bad association. A devotee is always free from all bad association. Sometimes one is praised and sometimes one is defamed. That is the nature of human society. But a devotee is always transcendental to artificial fame and infamy, distress or happiness. He's very patient. He doesn't speak of anything but the topics about Krishna, and therefore he is called silent. Silent does not mean that one should not speak. Silent means one shouldn't speak nonsense. Yeah. And satisfied with anything, Prabhupada mentions here. Just immediately after this about silence. The devotee doesn't worry. Good food, not so good. Good accommodation, not so good. Devotee just takes whatever comes as Krishna's mercy. Yeah. Like sometimes, back in the old days when I used to travel, we rarely traveled. Like every 3 days, maybe 4, but more like 3, many places. And of course the devotees are nice and they do look after us. But sometimes we'd stay in very simple places. And other times we'd stay in very nice places. But we didn't ask beforehand, what's the place going to be like where we'll stay? We just take it as it comes, because Krishna looks after his devotees. Then the devotee is fixed in knowledge. Prabhupada says the devotee is called fixed because he's fixed in his determination and knowledge. And then Prabhupada mentions we may find some repetition in the descriptions of the qualifications of a devotee. But this is just to emphasize the fact that a devotee must acquire all these qualifications. Without good qualifications, one cannot be a pure devotee. Very, very important. Yes, so then Prabhupada concludes the purport. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop the good qualifications. Of course, he does not extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him develop them. When Prabhupada's saying one who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop the good qualifications, Prabhupada's not saying that one who wants to become famous for being advanced amongst the devotees, become a prominent devotee, that, oh, look, here comes such and such. But what Prabhupada means is that one who wants to be recognized by Krishna, that, there is my devotee, needs to develop these qualifications. As we discussed right at the beginning, the idea is, how will Krishna love me? how will I become such a person? Krishna will want my association. This type of recognition, that we want, and that's what Prabhupada is talking about. And of course, it's also important, this other point, that the devotee does not extraneously endeavor. Means the devotee doesn't make some special effort to develop certain qualities, like go to a school for learning good manners, something like that. Of course, the devotee always tries to conduct himself or herself nicely as a representative of Krishna, but not making some artificial effort. How can I become like this or like that? But rather, just through practicing Krishna consciousness, through chanting very attentively, rendering service, serving the devotees, serving the spiritual master, the heart becomes cleansed, the heart becomes softer, and these good qualities naturally manifest, and the devotee just becomes like that, like a soft, gentle, like a jewel of a person. And verse 20, those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So, Krishna is emphasizing that devotional service is the best, and a pure devotee is the person who is most dear to him out of all. So Srila Prabhupada begins the purport in this chapter from verse through the end, from verse 2 to the end, from Mayavesha Manoye Mam, fixing the mind on me, through Ye tu Dharmarmritam idam, this religion of eternal engagement, which means this specific verse here, number 20. From verse 2 to this verse 20, the Supreme Lord has explained the processes of transcendental service for approaching Him. Such processes are very dear to the Lord, and He accepts a person engaged in them. This is very important, very important. So Srila Prabhupada continues. Let's have a look here now. It's almost the middle of the paragraph. Well, it's not actually. It's about 1/3 of the way down. Let's read what Prabhupada says. In other words, in this chapter it is decided that through good association, one develops attachment for pure devotional service, and thereby accepts a bona fide spiritual master, and from him begins to hear and chant and observe the regulative principles of devotional service with faith, attachment, and devotion, and thus becomes engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. This path is recommended in this chapter. Therefore, there's no doubt that devotional service is the only absolute path for self-realization, for the attainment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Absolute Truth, as described in this chapter, is recommended only up to the time one surrenders himself for self-realization. You remember that from last night. Under certain, unusual circumstances, it may be that some impersonal practice may be beneficial, because according to those standards, a person works without fruit of result, meditates, cultivates knowledge to understand spirit and matter. Yeah. So, otherwise, devotional service is confirmed all round as the best from all points of view. So, Srila Baladev Vijayabhushan concludes, Krishna is controlled by the persons devoted to him alone, and by the persons devoted solely to the process of bhakti, dedicated to him. The most beautiful Krishna is conquered completely by love. Hare Krishna. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 12th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of devotional service. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.